Hi everyone, this is Acks sporting a wonderful quarantine haircut. I'm the author of such fine steampunk tales as Murder on the Titania and Other Steam-Powered Adventures, and the new Wireless and More Steam-Powered Adventures. So I'm gonna read like a little bit for you from Wireless and More Steam-Powered Adventures, and this is gonna be a section from the start of the novella Do Shut Up, Mr. Sims. It was a beautiful day at the abandoned silver mine, affectionately known to its occupants as the Devil's Roost. The sun shone down from a nearly cloudless blue sky. A panorama of forest and fields spread out below, with the city that acted as the heart of the Grand Duchy of Denver occupying an evil yellow haze in the distance. Birds sang. A hawk circled lazily as if drawing a target around the sun. A soft breeze rustled the leaves of the aspen trees and the needles from the stately pines, occasionally sending a bit of foliage to land on the electrified perimeter fence with a loud crackle. Just beyond the fence, a few deer grazed idly. Meriwether Octavian Sims, known by his preference to everyone he'd ever met simply as Mr. Sims, or Sims, if they were feeling a bit froggy, didn't trust any of the wholesome natural goodness one bit. He held a mismatched cup and saucer, blue and white Changhua china, and a lumpy green, "Oh, look, Daddy, I made you a present, isn't it lovely?" respectively. Sorry, that was a bird hitting my door. Nobody appreciates art these days. And sipped his tea with the air of a man who knew that the other shoe was about to drop any second now, and if he was truly lucky, it would land square on his head and kill him before he had a chance to suffer. He was never, ever that lucky. Which was probably for the best, because in his more honest moments of introspection, which he perforce tried to keep few and far between, he had to admit that he actually liked a little bit of adventure. He would likely go just as mad as his best friend and partner in crime if forced into a life of boredom, though very likely in a much more quiet and unimpressive way. Sims was the right-hand man of Captain Marta Ramos, infamous rail and air pirate, scourge of the Grand Duchies, and general smug pain in the arse. How he had attained that position was a mystery still, even to him, and something he really only bothered to wonder about at times when angry people he did not know were attempting to insert knives, bullets, or cannonballs into his more delicate anatomy. These were the sorts of things that happened far too often to a person caught in Captain Ramos's orbit. That Captain Ramos was not currently in residence at the Roost didn't change the fact that Sims could all but feel an invisible noose tightening about his right ankle. No one had tried to kill him for months. The half-hearted efforts of the Grand Duke's security forces hardly counted. They couldn't hit the broadside of a barn, let alone a large man sprinting away in sheer terror. He was due. Sims took another sip of his tea and tugged a scrap of paper from the pocket of his buckskin jacket. The paper was only slightly stained as of yet, and covered with Captain Ramos's almost unreadable slapdash handwriting. Before her departure on her adventure up into the Dead Plains, Sims was simultaneously relieved she hadn't asked him along on that nonsense, and terribly hurt that she hadn't decided she needed him. Was a list of things she expected him to accomplish while she was gone. Mostly things, he noted, that were really supposed to be her responsibility, and she had slagged off as too boring, such as testing the entire crew to make certain they were all still reasonably accurate with their machetes. Fine. He didn't mind being boring old Sims, the giant redhead with the mutton chops. Don't mind him, he's really a kitten underneath it all. He didn't mind, truly. Only he did. Very much. All of the items on the list were crossed off, but for the last three, two of which required a foray down into the city. Check if Count Blatherthwaite, Sims muttered to himself, has moved his safe yet, and weekly Dropbox round. Neither were terribly exciting tasks, which explained why he hadn't gotten up the motivation to take the little rail car down the mountains and wander around pretending to be a civilized member of society. And then, of course, the last item was there only to annoy him, he was certain. Don't do anything silly. The very idea. Sims didn't do silly things, ever. The whole point of his existence, it often felt like, was to stand by in horrified fascination as Captain Ramos did every silly thing her more cracked mental faculties could invent, as if natural law demanded the presence of a witness at all times. He stuffed the list back in his pocket and took another sip of his tea. Behind him, the metal door that covered the defunct mine shaft opened with a clunk, though any proclivity toward metallic squilling had been removed by the liberal use of oil. Footsteps crunched in the gravel behind him, rapid and purposeful. "Mr. Sims!" Sims recognized the light, melodious tones of Amelia Cavendish. She'd been well on her way to becoming a professional opera singer before she dropped in on the crew during a raid and declared her intention to join, while still wearing a full costume ball gown. He'd never asked why. It wasn't really any of his business. Far more importantly, Amelia wasn't even supposed to be here. That morning, she had departed for town, wearing a red jacket and a jaunty pair of striped trousers guaranteed to scandalize anyone who realized she was female. In her wake had been Gregory Kinzer with his thoroughly disreputable bowler pulled low over his eyes, and Lucius Lambert, the nattiest of the bunch in a tweed three-piece suit, a little four-leaf clover pin on his lapel throwing off sparks of morning light. Yet here Amelia was, returned far too early and with a tone of breathless urgency in her voice. Sims sighed and set his teacup back down. "Hello, other shoe," he muttered. So, if that sounds interesting and fun, the rest of it can be found in this book along with 2 more stories. I hope you enjoy.